Hola, 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 y bienvenidos a otro episodio de Listen, Read, Interact. Welcome to another episode of Listen, Read, Interact. This is episode number 55. And my name is Andrew Snyder, and I am the host of the Listen, Read, Interact podcast. I am a Spanish language professor. I've been so for about 15 years. I love teaching languages. I do private lessons also. I teach at a college in my local community, which I love doing, working with the community and helping build fluency in students who come through the doors of my classroom. I just love doing that. And I also teach private lessons, and I teach some other things through the Tacoma Language Academy. You can check that out, tacomalanguageacademy.com, tacomalanguageacademy.com if you're interested in private lessons. I got some coming up. Fridays are good days for that. Especially right now during this part of the quarter. So if you're listening to this episode when it's recent, then Fridays tend to be a really great day for me to offer private lessons this quarter. There's times actually from through October and into November now, so take a peek at that if some of those times work for you. tacomalanguageacademy.com. I'd like to start every episode by talking about language acquisition a bit. And one of the things that I really, really enjoy in my classes and that I use frequently is storytelling. Now, storytelling is just one of those things that's built into humans. We're hardwired for storytelling as a way of communicating information and transmitting information even across generations. So it's one way that we store information as a species is to tell stories. And these stories encode in them archetypes and all sorts of stuff that we've noticed over the years about our storytelling that, so that this kind of character acts in this kind of way. I love storytelling for that reason, but I also love it because it allows me to put language in context. And having the language in context is so much better than reading isolated examples, seeing isolated examples here and there. For example, when I learn other languages, one of the tools that I use is Duolingo, and I don't have a problem with Duolingo, except that it doesn't do a great job of putting the language in context. There's a bunch of random sentences, and that's fine, especially for beginners. But a story-based approach where you are actually using the story as the main vehicle for input, for me, is a much better approach. We're storytelling creatures anyway. If we get lost in a series on Netflix, we just watch that whole thing. We'll binge that whole series. I know I've done that before. I'm a little better about it now. I will watch one episode at a time, and I've turned off the autoplay, and that's given me some more control over how much I consume at a time. But we are that way, and I think it would be silly to deny that we are that way. And so by putting something in a story form, you get all of the high-frequency vocabulary, because when you tell a story, all of the high-frequency vocabulary comes along for the ride. It's hard to tell a story without using the high-frequency vocabulary. Now, listening to a story, honestly, is probably enough for acquisition. You can acquire lots of language just by listening to stories, just by reading stories that are comprehensible to you. Because the way that we acquire language is by processing messages. The more messages that we receive, your brain takes it in. You hear it through your ears or you read it through your eyes, and then it activates systems in your brain. It gets converted to electrical signals, and your brain then interprets those electrical signals, and it looks for comprehension. It says, hey, is there a message here? And if there's not a message, your brain likely discards those noises that it heard as background noises. There's so much information that our brains are taking in every day that it just discards. It's really good at filtering through the noise to get to the message. And the same is true when you're reading. So if you read something and you don't understand it, you're probably not going to pick up that language because your brain is going to filter it out as a garbled message, a message that doesn't make any sense. So why is your brain going to spend extra resources rewiring itself? Because really that's what you're doing. You're rewiring your brain to learn a new language, to acquire a new language, have it be part of your mental representation of a language, your mental model of language. Your brain is going to rewire itself. And why would it spend those resources if the message that's being communicated isn't useful? So that's something that you need to consider. Are you understanding the messages that you read, the messages that you hear in the language? And if you are, you're probably doing everything that you need to do to acquire language. I know this is true. I acquire language all the time, and I don't necessarily interact with it other than listening to it and trying to understand. And sometimes that means if I'm listening in a new language, I'll go look up some words, and that's a form of interaction. But I'm curious. I want to know what the message is, and the more messages that I process, the more likely it is that I'm going to be able to understand messages when they're spoken to me, and then that mental representation of language, that mental model of the language, really is what I draw upon to speak. So when I'm having a conversation with someone, I have this mental representation, this mental model of Spanish or mental model of English or mental model of Portuguese, lo que sea, and I can respond based on that mental model. And I don't think about what I'm going to say. I think about the message that I want to communicate, and the words themselves bubble up from my subconscious. It's a beautiful thing. It is a marvelous thing. I think that's where I'm going to put pause on this discussion for today and just encourage you to get as much comprehensible input as you can, as process with your brain, process as many messages in the language as you can, and that's going to give you the best chance at acquisition, at acquiring the language, at picking up the language, at building your internal mental representation, your internal model of the language. If you're interested in more of a discussion on this, or perhaps you're an educator and would like me to come talk to your school or your school district, I would love to do that. Please message me at andrew@readtospeak.com, andrew@readtospeak.com. And that is where you can find me. Just message me, say, hey, I'd love for you to come chat, and we can try and make something work together. All right, each episode of Listen, Read, Interact, besides this little chat that I like to do at the beginning about language acquisition, is a lesson in and of itself. It's a lesson that is structured in 3 parts. The first part is a pre-reading, kind of a warm-up. And there is an interaction piece to it as well. On the podcast, you'll hear 10 example sentences in this first part of the lesson. So these 10 example sentences are meant to kind of be a gauge for you. And if you're able to understand these 10 sentences, you're probably ready to move on to the second part of the lesson, which is a short version of a short story, in Spanish. So you'll hear these 10 example sentences. You'll hear them repeated a few times. Then you'll hear a short story on the show. And finally, if you're able to comprehend that, then part 3 is a longer version of that same story. And that's really our goal for the episode, is to get to that part of the lesson. Get to part 3, comprehend part 3, because it's the most challenging out of the 3 parts. Now, on the show notes page, and there is a show notes page, you can find that at listenreadinteract.com/55, because this is episode 55. The number is 55. Listenreadinteract.com/55. And you can see that there are a number of interactive activities that can be completed, can be worked on the show notes page for each section. So there are, for example, some definitions. There's a fill-in-the-blank quiz about those definitions. And if you can understand those words, then the example sentences might be a little easier. So you might even put pause on the show and go over and complete those first before you listen. Then there's this blue box. This blue box is the examples box, and those are the sentences that you'll be hearing. And you can read them first or you can read them after. I would probably read them after, probably try to listen first and understand first. And if you don't get it, that's fine. You could listen again while you read, listen and read at the same time. If you click on those sentences or tap on those sentences, if you're on your mobile device, you can see the English translations. So that blue box that says ejemplos, those are the transcriptions and translations of the examples section from this episode. And reading the English a lot of times will help you confirm your comprehension. It might also teach you a word or two that you didn't know, so just from context, so that's a very positive thing. Then there's another activity, which is like an order the words type activity, where you just click and drag the words in order, and you can check your answers. And that's wonderful. That's a wonderful activity to do because it forces you to process. You can't put those sentences in order, those words in order to form sentences, unless you process correctly what those words and phrases mean. So that's a really powerful thing as well, and it will just tell you to check your order if you get it wrong. There's no penalty for getting it right. There's no penalty for getting it wrong, and there's really no prize for getting it right other than, hey, I got it right. Then part 2 is that brief reading and interaction where on the show you'll hear the version of the show, but on the show notes page you will get a complete version of exactly what you hear on the show, and it'll be with footnotes. So there'll be an underlined word with a number by it. Let's say number 4, and you click on that one. It says había una vez, and you click on it or tap on it, and it takes you down to the glossary right below. And there you can see what that phrase means. And these are words that I would deem likely unfamiliar. So they're words that if you were to be in my class and you were to read this reading, I would gloss these words for you because I figure they would be likely unfamiliar. There's more ways to interact in this episode too, in this section, in this part 2 section. And there's a part that's in an orange box, a light orange box, little peachy colored box. And that is cierto o falso. And we have a true or false quiz. You'll hear those true or false statements on the show, but you won't hear the answers on the show. But if you go to the show notes page and click on the answers, you'll see if it's true or false. And if it's false, it'll tell you why it's false. Another really good way to interact is just to check your comprehension. Did you understand? And as a bonus, reading those sentences is more repetition, is more processing of messages. They're one-sentence messages, but they are related to something that you've heard, related to something that maybe you read as well, or just read. You know, there's many ways to listen and to read and to interact. There's more ways to interact in that way as well. Then the last section is that complete reading and interaction. So there's a longer version of that story that was in part 2. Again, it has the complete reading on the show notes page. This is a very valuable tool for you. This is a super valuable thing. Like, I'm shocked that there aren't more of these out there, and I would encourage people, if you have stories that you've written, to write them and to publish them so that other people can see them in this kind of a format. It's very, very useful to see those words, especially the glossed words. It'll help you from having to look up things, and looking up words is one of those things that will slow you down and will discourage you, and it's enough of a barrier to get you to put the thing down, to put the book down or to put the podcast away. It's enough of a barrier. It's hard to listen to language that you don't understand very well, or maybe not every word of. It's hard to read something that you don't understand every word of. But it's nice to see natural language in context, and it's a very powerful way to learn a lot of vocabulary very, very quickly. There's ways to interact with this as well. There's a multiple choice quiz on part 3. There's a complete the sentence thing, and preguntas personales, which are personal questions, which you might be able to click on and read, or you can reveal them all and try to answer them in Spanish as best you can. And so that is what the show is like. And I will say that this episode is part 6 in a 6-part series for true beginners. So if you're looking for something a little bit more challenging, you should go back to episode number 45, and probably before that. Number 45 was the last one for intermediate speakers, but listenreadinteract.com, and if you go backwards in time, let's see here. If you go to episode 45 is the beginning of a series of stories that are actually all connected as part of a novel. It's a complete novel if you listen to all of them from 45 through 49. You'll hear a complete novel actually for intermediate speakers. And starting with episode 50. Episode 50 is a big one. That's the start of this 6-episode series. Short stories written for true beginners. So episode 50, if you're a true beginner, go check out episode 50. If you're looking for more intermediate Spanish, go check out episode 45. Listenreadinteract.com/45. Listenreadinteract.com/50. Depending on if you want intermediate, that's 45. And true beginner, that's episode 50. Then each episode in this series builds off the previous one. So if you're a true beginner and you skip an episode, you might be a little bit lost. You might be okay, since it's roughly the same level, just targeting some different vocabulary. But if you're a true beginner, I would go back and listen to episode 50. That's my honest recommendation there. Okay, so once we get started with this, we're going to be all in Spanish. There'll be a little break where I chat in the middle, but then we'll go back to Spanish. So once we get started, we'll do parts 1 and part 2 in Spanish, a little break in English, and chat about something really quickly, and then we'll be back in Spanish for the last part. So this is a new format I'm kind of playing with, and I think this is the way that I want to do it moving forward. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and get started with this. And with that, vamos adelante. Ok, perfecto. Ya estamos. Pues en esta parte número 1 vamos a ver la parte de prelectura con ejemplos e interacción. En esta parte vas a escuchar 10 ejemplos en español, claro, y voy a repetir 3 veces por ejemplo, ¿no? Entonces, en el número 1 voy a repetir 3 veces. Una vez voy a repetir despacio, voy a leerlo despacio. Después voy a leer muy despacio. Y por fin voy a leer un poco más rápido para que puedas escucharlo de una manera más natural, ¿no? Así que, por favor, vamos a leer el número 1. Escucha, por favor, 3 veces. Luisa aparece de repente como un fantasma. Luisa aparece de repente como un fantasma. Luisa aparece de repente como un fantasma. 2. El ladrón busca el cuadro famoso de Velázquez. El ladrón busca el cuadro famoso de Velázquez. El ladrón busca el cuadro famoso de Velázquez. 3. Oye algo en la oscuridad del museo. Oye algo en la oscuridad del museo. Oye algo en la oscuridad del museo. 4. El museo está muy silencioso. pero ruidoso con truenos. El museo está muy silencioso, pero ruidoso con truenos. El museo está muy silencioso, pero ruidoso con truenos. 5. El hombre trata de acercarse al fantasma. El hombre trata de acercarse al fantasma. El hombre trata de acercarse al fantasma. 6. Luisa grita desde el techo del museo. Luisa grita desde el techo del museo. Luisa grita desde el techo del museo. 7. Estoy atrapado en el borde del edificio. Estoy atrapado en el borde del edificio. Estoy atrapado en el borde del edificio. 8. El fantasma sigue al ladrón hasta el techo. El fantasma sigue al ladrón hasta el techo. El fantasma sigue al ladrón hasta el techo. 9. El hombre lleva ropa negra para no ser visto. El hombre lleva ropa negra para no ser visto. El hombre lleva ropa negra para no ser visto. 10. Mientras está cayendo, oye la voz de Luisa. Mientras está cayendo, oye la voz de Luisa. Mientras está cayendo, oye la voz de Luisa. Pues perfecto, ahí está. Por favor, si quieres más actividades, ve a la página para este episodio, que es listenreadinteract.com/55. Pues bien, ahora estamos en la parte 2, que es una breve lectura. Si quieres leer conmigo, puedes encontrar, puedes hallar, puedes encontrar la lectura en la página para este episodio, listenreadinteract.com/55, ya que este es episodio 55. Es una noche oscura y lluviosa en Madrid. Estoy escondido afuera del Museo del Prado. Llevo ropa negra y espero el momento oportuno para entrar en el museo. Soy un ladrón de arte, pero no soy muy bueno en mi trabajo. Soy torpe y no muy listo. Había una vez, me casé con María por accidente. En realidad, yo quería casarme con Luisa porque estaba enamorado de ella. Pero no sabía que Luisa tenía una hermana gemela. Fue un error y ahora estoy divorciado. Todo eso está en el pasado y ahora estoy enfocado en robar Las Meninas, el cuadro famoso de Velázquez. A la medianoche empieza a llover mucho, con truenos y relámpagos. Entro en el museo y camino buscando el cuadro. De repente, escucho una voz que dice: Teóscar, Teóscar. Reconozco la voz. Es la voz de Luisa, aunque sé que ella está muerta. Luisa, ¿qué haces aquí? ¿No estás muerta? Pregunto. Sí, estoy muerta, responde ella. Entonces veo su fantasma. Está muy enojada y me dice: Estoy protegiendo este cuadro para que no lo robes tú, cochino. Tengo mucho miedo y corro. Subo las escaleras y llego al techo del museo, pero el fantasma de Luisa me sigue. Estoy atrapado en el borde del edificio y Luisa me grita: ¿Por qué te casaste con mi hermana? Me siento muy triste y trato de acercarme a ella para abrazarla, pero como soy muy torpe, me tropiezo y me caigo del techo. Mientras estoy cayendo, oigo a Luisa decir: ¡Caray! ¡Perdí otro! Bueno, ahora tenemos unas preguntas de comprensión. Estas son 8 y son preguntas o más bien frases que son o ciertas o falsas, o verdaderas o falsas. Así que escucha 2 veces a cada frase y decide si es cierto o falso. En la página web, para este episodio en la página, que es listenreadinteract.com/55, verás una cajita de color naranja. En esa cajita de color naranja están las 8 frases. Si haces clic en la frase, eso va a revelar si es cierto o si es falso. Si es falso, te dirá por qué es falso, ¿no? Ok, muy bien. Número 1. Teóscar está escondido afuera del Museo del Prado en Madrid. Teóscar está escondido afuera del Museo del Prado en Madrid. 2. Teóscar es un ladrón muy inteligente y exitoso. Teóscar es un ladrón muy inteligente y exitoso. 3. Teóscar se casó con Luisa porque estaba enamorado de ella. Teóscar se casó con Luisa porque estaba enamorado de ella. 4. Luisa tiene una hermana gemela. Luisa tiene una hermana gemela. 5. Teóscar quiere robar el cuadro Las Meninas, entre comillas, de Diego Velázquez. Teóscar quiere robar el cuadro Las Meninas de Diego Velázquez. 6. Cuando escucha la voz de Luisa, Teóscar no tiene miedo. Cuando escucha la voz de Luisa, Teóscar no tiene miedo. 7. El fantasma de Luisa está protegiendo el cuadro del museo. El fantasma de Luisa está protegiendo el cuadro del museo. Número 8. Teóscar logra escapar del fantasma al final de la historia. Teóscar logra escapar del fantasma al final de la historia. Ok, perfecto. Con esto vamos a terminar la parte número 2 de la lección. Y a continuación veremos la parte 3, que es la historia completa. All right, I'm going to put pause on the Spanish for a moment. When you hear the bell again, we'll be back for part 3 of the lesson, the final part of the lesson. Listen, Read, Interact is a value for value show, so please support us however you can. That can be in the form of time, talent, or treasure. If you feel like you've gotten value out of this show, please provide value back. This is a wonderful model because it allows us to provide the show without any advertising. So if you have any value that you've gotten out of the show, and really you're the one that can decide whether or not this resource is valuable for you. If you like the show notes page, if you like that sort of a thing, you can provide value back in lots of ways. One way would be to share your time just by writing a message, asking a question, something I can talk about in the beginning of the show. That'd be very, very helpful and make the show even more interactive. That's really what I'm looking for here. I'd love to be your professor. You can provide value back in terms of your talent. Are you a Spanish language teacher or author or something along those lines? Do you have a story that you've written? Have you written a story with your class? Has someone in your class written a story? I would love to have that be featured on the show. Send me a message, andrew@readtospeak.com, and we can figure something out that way. That's another really great way to build community, and I would love to feature other authors on the show. So if you've got Spanish language novels that you write and you want to have an excerpt of that, one of your novels read on the show, man, that'd be a great one. And we can even develop some activities to go along with it and that sort of a thing. So that'd be a lot of fun. So if that's your talent, please send your talent this way, and that's very valuable to the show. And you can also help the show with your monetary donations, and you can do that at listenreadinteract.com/donate. We're 100% listener supported. So your support actually means that the show gets to keep going. My goal is to do 100 episodes. And if at 100 episodes, we're looking like it's a place where the show can sustain itself, then we're going to keep going with it. And if at 100 episodes, the market has spoken, as it were, and said, no, we're not interested in this, then probably that's where it'll end. So we're at episode 55 right now. So I'm looking for some additional support to keep this going. And every donation, any amount, any frequency is highly, highly appreciated. It helps us keep things going when times are slow, especially those $4 weekly sustaining donations. There's links to these on the donation page, which is listenreadinteract.com/donate. There's a link in the episode description as well. So your support does mean the world to us, and it makes it possible to keep going. So if you like the show, you're a fan of the show, tell your friends about it. Let everyone know who should know about this show. Let them know about it. And that's something that I'm very, 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 very appreciative of. If you're looking for more things to read, I have lots of stuff you can read at readtospeakspanish.com as well. Lots of stuff there. Lots of novels that I've written. There is a section of links on the show notes page. It says links. It's right near the top of the page. And it's got a link to various things like an El Escritorio template download, which is an activity that you can do with any reading. There's a dictation template, which is an activity you can do with any listening activity that you have access to the source material from. So someone reads something, you can, like the last story, the last version of the story on this show would be great for a dictation. Or those example sentences at the beginning, great for a dictation. Lots of stuff to look at there. La Piña de la Verdad is a book that I've written for language learners. It's funny. I enjoyed that one. It's pretty fun. It was fun to write, and I've used it in class. I use that one for Spanish 2, but it's approachable for Spanish 1 as well, and it has a full glossary. All that stuff really goes a long way to help support the show. So thank you so much to everyone who's donated in the past. And if you donate over $50, I will read your name, location, and amount on the show, and I will give you a shout out. And if you have a short note for me, I'd love to read that as well. So, hey, really, really good stuff. Thank you so much for everyone who's donated in the past. It's very, very much appreciated, and it does help the show continue on. So thank you so much. listenreadinteract.com/donate. Let's get back to the show. Perfecto, ya estamos en la parte 3, la versión completa de la historia. Hay muchas más maneras de interactuar con este lenguaje, con este vocabulario, en la página para este episodio, que es listenreadinteract.com/55. Es una noche oscura y tenebrosa en la capital española. Un hombre bajo y gordo está escondido afuera del Museo Nacional del Prado, en Madrid. Oscar, quien se viste de negro, está esperando el momento oportuno para entrar en el museo. Verá, Oscar es un ladrón de arte. Lamentablemente, no es un buen ladrón. De hecho, es muy malo en su trabajo. Es un hombre torpe y no es muy listo. Un ejemplo de su torpeza es cuando se casó con María por accidente. Verá, en realidad, Oscar quería casarse con Luisa. Estaba enamorado de Luisa porque ella era malvada como él. Oscar no sabía que Luisa tenía una hermana gemela. La verdad es que fue un error honesto. Ahora Oscar está divorciado y todo eso está en el pasado. Agua pasada no mueve molino, piensa Oscar para sí mismo. En este momento, Oscar está concentrado en robar un cuadro famoso del museo. Quiere robar Las Meninas, el cuadro más famoso de Diego Velázquez. A la medianoche empieza a llover. Después de unos minutos está lloviendo muy fuerte. También hay relámpagos y truenos. Oscar entra en el museo y busca el cuadro que quiere robar. Está caminando cuando oye un ruido. Es el ruido de una voz que le está llamando. Teóscar, dice la voz, como si estuviera en agonía. Teóscar. En este momento, Teóscar reconoce la voz. Es la voz de Luisa. Que en paz descanse. Luisa, ¿qué haces aquí? Pregunta Teóscar al aire. ¿No estás muerta? Sí, estoy muerta, responde Luisa. Entonces ella se revela. Ahora Teóscar puede ver el fantasma de Luisa. Teóscar tiene miedo. Es obvio que no está contenta para nada. Luisa le dice: estoy embrujando este cuadro para que no lo robes tú, cochino. Teóscar tiene mucho miedo y empieza a correr. Sube las escaleras y sale al techo del museo. Pero el fantasma de Luisa lo sigue. Teóscar está en el borde del edificio, la tormenta rugiendo a su alrededor. Ahora no tiene a dónde correr. Luisa le dice: ¿por qué? ¿Por qué te casaste con mi hermana? Teóscar está abrumado por la tristeza. Empieza a caminar hacia Luisa para abrazarla. Lamentablemente, como es muy torpe, Teóscar se tropieza y se cae del techo del museo. ¡Caray! ¡Perdí otro!, lamenta el fantasma de Luisa. Y con esto terminamos el capítulo del día de hoy. Muchísimas gracias por escuchar. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to episode 55 of the Listen, Read, Interact podcast. New episodes drop every Saturday, so check back next Saturday for episode number 56. We're going to keep going with some of these stories for beginners, although the next ones are kind of one-offs and not designed to be in a series. These last 5, starting with episode 50, are designed to be in part of a series. And I do have something big to announce next episode, so take a moment to listen to us next Saturday. listenreadinteract.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on the website itself, wherever you want to listen rather. You can't watch anything, there's no video. So anywhere you want to listen, that's where we are. All right. Hey, thanks for listening. Muchísimas gracias. Y hasta la próxima.